All right, welcome everyone. My name is Holly and I'm going to be facilitating today's workshop on bringing students back to the center. And as you can see, these students peering down on us are very excited to be at the center of this workshop today. So I want to go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover. Most of you all know about us, so I won't belabor too much about this information, but this is a bit of information about TGR EDU Create and what we do. A little bit about myself again. My name is Holly Denard. I'm going to be facilitating. My background is in elementary education, informal science education, and curriculum development. Things I love to do, which is very much a part of what spring is all about, is hiking and gardening and cooking. So that's a little bit about me. I can't wait to learn more about everyone as well. I also want to have our team say hello that it's on the workshop today. So David, Jess, and Manny want to say hello really quickly. Nice waves going on. I love it.
Hey guys, good to see everyone, especially if our folks from Columbia. It's been so long since I've seen you guys. Looking forward to a great workshop. Good job, Holly.
So, hello everyone, my name is Manny Long. I'm one of the instructor at the TGR Learning Lab. Great to be here. Welcome everybody. I am really happy to be able to help out today.
Awesome. Thanks, Manny. Manny's going to be helping us with those behind the scenes things that we all know we need. So really want to just reiterate some of the workshop norms. Of course, keep your microphones muted and when there's background noise, and cameras on. We would love to see your smiling faces. I really feed off of those smiles or even puzzle faces. So please keep your cameras on if at all possible. We are going to be having a lot of collaboration and interaction and sharing of ideas. So when possible, please feel free to unmute yourself or share in the chat box just any questions you might have, ideas you would like to share with the group. All right, so a little bit of icons you will be seeing throughout the workshop and each of the PowerPoint slides indicating something that I might be asking you all to do or be a part of, is that blue man group here indicating we're going to be moving into breakout rooms, so separate collaborative environments, small group work. We're going to be using two tech tools today, both Jamboard and Google Slides. And we're also, feel free to use the chat box and the mic. So with that being said, let's get going on our agenda. So we're really going to be talking about the what, the why, and the how of student-centered learning. We're also going to go be engaged in an activity that really brings that students to the center and have an opportunity after that to really reflect. So we're going to be going through this activity as a student and then have an opportunity to really have a conversation with the group and how that felt, what we learned, what was the process like for us. So I'm excited to share that, and I'm seeing all the great chats. Thanks you guys for sharing out a little bit about who you are and where you're coming from. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into our workshop here, talking about this student-centered versus teacher-centered. So we're going to start with using Jamboard, and I'm going to introduce the Jamboard slide here in just a moment. But what I would like us to share on this Jamboard slide is what we know about student-centered learning and what we know about teacher-centered learning. So we're going to give you the link in just 1 second. I just want to share with you what that Jamboard looks like and a way to interact with Jamboard if you've not had the opportunity to work with Jamboard before. So Jamboard is a part of Google Suite, so it's a part of their different interactions within Google. It at the top, one thing I want you to look at the top, is a way to look at the different frames. So Jamboard is a way, like a blank canvas, if you will. And you can use these arrows to scroll. And the reason why I'm showing you that is that the first Jamboard slide is what is a teacher-centered classroom? And if we use that arrow, we can go ahead and scroll then to what is a student-centered classroom. And the way we're going to interact with this, we're not going to go into breakout rooms. We're just going to share the link. And you're going to add what's called sticky notes. So that's the tools on the left-hand side here. And the fourth icon down is the sticky note option. So when you click on that, it's going to appear just like a Post-it note. You can change colors, choose your favorite color, but you're just going to type something that you feel teacher-centered is, and then save it. It will automatically go onto that frame. And you can change that or delete it, move it around by clicking on the square or on your sticky note. But you can click on the more options and you can edit, duplicate, or delete. So for this activity, that's all we're going to engage with for now, is using that sticky note option. All right, so David's going to put Manny's going to put the link in the chat box. There it is. If you simply just click on that link, it'll bring you right to this Jamboard couple of frames, and go ahead and add your thoughts about teacher-centered, and then go ahead and scroll over to student-centered. And we're going to spend about 3 minutes here adding our thoughts about these two different learning environments. Feel free to share out in the chat if you're having troubles getting into the Jamboard. We have our first brave entry here. The teacher is giving instruction or direction. Yeah, here we go. Not a lot of student voice. All right, feel free to scroll on over to student-centered when you're ready. By using that arrow at the top. Oh, somebody found the text box, right? Good job. Oh, I'm going to call out on someone because I love this one right here. In a minute, I'm going to ask teacher as a sage on the stage. I just saw that reference the other day. I love it. All right, just at about 30 more seconds to go ahead and throw up your last thoughts on teacher-centered and student-centered. All right, thanks everybody for adding. So I'm going to go ahead and really look at a few of these comments because I really like what you all are throwing out on there. But I'm going to actually have us reflect as an educator right now. What is the benefit of using this type of digital tool when asking maybe student questions? What is really the benefit of using these sticky notes? Anyone have thoughts on that? Feel free to unmute or share in the chat box. Yeah, so I seen Saki saying it's anonymous. Yeah, exactly. I really don't know who is providing what particular responses, which can be a benefit and sometimes a challenge as well. But I am going to ask one person, whoever shared the teacher as the sage on the stage. Can you just share out a little bit about what that means? And why you found that important to put down for teacher centered.
Hi, Holly. So it's Trin. I added that the note of the teacher as sage on the stage, because for me, a teacher-centered classroom is one where the teacher is like the focal point, right? And all of the activities and the questions and answers all are dependent on what the teacher is doing and saying. So if a student is confused about something, the teacher is kind of expected to have all of the answers and be kind of like the director.
Yeah,
That's
so I heard this reference to teacher centered as I was doing some research, and I really love that reference. Is that one person, that expert, that sage, right? And they're on the stage, literally providing information to students. So thank you, Trin, for sharing that. Looking really quickly over at student-centered, the teacher, I love this one, teacher relies on students to progress the dialogue. Anyone want to share out any thoughts around that one? Whoever put that out.
Yeah, that was me, Holly, and I remember doing this exercise when I was in high school, where my high school English teacher told us that we had to lead the dialogue, and then he wasn't going to get involved, and it was about 20 minutes of like awkward silence until I think we got over that, and then we finally had to actually progress it, and we led the dialogue in there, and I think it showed us, we were in high school, we were seniors, but we were still able to do that. And it led for a lot of good discussions. You just had to get over that hump of not wanting to talk.
Yeah.
So, that was really good. That's something that stuck with me.
Yeah, I love that, Andres. That silence, because it's an uncomfortable feeling for us for right now when we're used to and we're accustomed to being the passive receivers of information to now be a part of sharing information. So awesome job. Thanks you guys for sharing your ideas and thoughts around these different learning environments. Just a quick couple of notes. Much of what you already have put on there is the teacher in the teacher-centered learning is that center, that sage on the stage, like Trin was saying. They're the sole suppliers of knowledge, whereas in student center, it really shifts to teacher and student actively engaging in sharing of information. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into breakout rooms in a moment, because we're going to dive a little bit deeper because of looking at those benefits, challenges, and how we can find solutions to some of the challenges of student-centered learning environment. So in a minute, we're going to be going into breakout rooms. I'm going to give you examples of what we're going to do first, and then I'll share the Google Slides that you're going to be working on in small groups. First, we're going to be looking at teacher-centered benefits and challenges. So for an example, we might add that a benefit for teacher-centered would be less chaos in the room. So sometimes that's just needed to have less chaos. So it can be a benefit. A challenge might be in that teacher-centered, there's less collaboration or less opportunity for collaboration. And then if we look at student-centered, we can look what was a challenge in the teacher-centered, and it might be considered in our minds and in our discussion that it's an opportunity for collaboration and problem solving. A challenge might be in that student-centered learning environment that sometimes, as Andres was trying to share, is that it can really be difficult for students to adapt to that switch from being accustomed to just listening to now having to have this dialogue with our peers. So this is going to be the first part, or part one, when you go into breakout rooms. And then there's a second Google slide that we're going to be working with to talk about the challenges that we wrote for student-centered learning environments and trying to come up with a solution for that challenge. So if I were to put that students, some students not adapting well to the switch, anyone want to share out a thought how you can resolve that particular challenge? What might be a way or a solution? You can share in the chat or just simply unmute. We all know each other.
I think, Holly, just to have them practice. They don't always know how to interact. So just having them practice how to
Lily.
be able to progress that dialogue. So
Absolutely.
that they
So
know the
just
cues.
Yeah, thanks, Lily, for sharing that out. Definitely just having the practice, more and more opportunities. Absolutely. One solution that I was thinking of is you might want to adopt these student-centered strategies gradually versus all at once. So that might help students, to Lily's point, have more opportunities to practice. It's like not throwing them into the deep end before they've had an opportunity to kind of get comfortable in that shallow end. All right, so we're going to put the link for this Google slide in the chat box, but I do want to share with you what that is going to look like. We're going to be going into breakout rooms in a moment. So each group is going to have 2 slides. The first slide will have an where you're going to be able to write out your teacher-centered benefits and challenges, and then your student-centered benefits and challenges. The second slide for your group, and in your group numbers up on the top left-hand corner, you're going to take those student-centered challenges and copy them over here and think of and discuss with your group ways that you might resolve that, ways that you might find solutions. All right, I'm going to pause here for a moment. Anyone have questions or having difficulty getting into the Google Doc? All right, so we're going to go ahead. David, are we ready to go ahead and send them into breakout rooms?
Yeah, we are. And so as Holly mentioned, the Google slide doc is in the chat. If you're unable to type in for any reason, feel free to just type in the chat or just share it with your small group so they can get the knowledge or the information into your slide. If you need any help, just let us know. There's a little ask for help button once you get into the breakout room on the bottom of your screen. And then we'll be popping around to see how you guys are doing. But we'll be in small groups, about 3 to 4. And then we'll have about 5 minutes, Holly.
Yeah, about a little over 5 minutes, about 7 minutes to do that. And then we'll have an opportunity to kind of talk about what each group discussed in their groups. So, all right, I guess we're ready to head into breakout rooms.
All right, have fun, everyone.
Have fun.
All right, welcome back. Sorry we ripped you from the breakout rooms, but you guys know the drill for Zoom.
Yeah, sorry. I know that was fast and furious. But
Yeah, that was not enough time.
I know, Irina, I know.
Irina, you know we'll be here afterwards, so we can chat more about it.
We can talk more. You guys did such a great job, though, really being intentional about thinking about those benefits and challenges. And I know we didn't get to solutions, but maybe we can just have an opportunity, a quick opportunity to maybe share something that we discussed about what might be a solution. So I'm going to pick a couple of groups here. Group 2. Anything that you would want to share out group 2 for what you all wrote for benefits, challenges of both, and something you might have discussed that would be a solution to some of those challenges.
We didn't get that far, so we don't know what solutions can we have for the challenge because we don't even have the challenge for student-centered learning. I don't know, maybe because we are some kind of traditional teachers, we just wrote the benefits and challenge for the teacher-centered, and we were trying to talk about the students. And I was saying that for me, yesterday, I tried to make the students to ask the questions. So I was like with the main question, and then it was like, okay, how I'm going to do this? How I'm going to ask the students to do it? For me, that was like, that is a challenge in that case. And it was a little fun because they started answering the question, and I was like, no, don't answer the questions. What other questions can you imagine? So I don't know if I do it okay, well or not, but at the end, they transform their answers, and then I have a bunch of questions. But that was the only thing that I could do yesterday.
Well, what I have to say is that was an awesome way to start that process. So it just takes doing little things at a time so that you are getting students more comfortable and yourself more comfortable with giving them that opportunity to ask questions.
That is a challenge that maybe we as a teacher don't feel comfortable with that because it's new.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, absolutely.
And apparently the students don't either because that is new for them too.
Absolutely, good point. So I'm going to pick on group 3 as well. We got some challenges in here. So we have Lily, Saki, and Mate. Anything you want to share out from your group and your discussions?
Se rindió.
We had a lot of good discussion. I think we didn't really get a chance to start thinking about solutions, but I think that definitely as far ahead, because there are things that could come up that are unexpected, but I thought of that maybe that as a possible solution, that becomes a teachable moment. So something that you didn't expect, but can benefit the progression of what the students are doing. And just sort of, I guess sort of like, you know, surfing. You get comfortable with moving with the water.
Oh, I like that analogy, Lily. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think that's a really good point, Lily, that, you know, sometimes it's hard to plan ahead because you don't know what to expect. And that's where I think for us as educators, that's that, like Arina was saying, it's like us getting comfortable as well for that unexpected moments. So yeah, okay, so running a little bit short on time, so we have a lot more to do, but I just want to kind of open it up. Anyone else in the other groups want to share out an aha or something that they feel like really would like to share with the whole group?
Yeah, Holly, I know for me, I was with Lilo and Noe, and the one thing I started thinking about is, you know, my experience is based on like US, you know, the US model of teaching, right? But since they're from Colombia, I wanted to know, well, like, is it different, or is there even some student-centered in there already, or what's it look like? Because I think we can get very centered on just US only, and they both tell me it's kind of, you know, it's depending on the teacher, on the professor. and I think a little bit here too, it's kind of like that, but we had to put is keeps you on track or on schedule for the benefits, because they feel like that's a big topic here in the US of like following the curriculum, and you have to get through that, and that's kind of why sometimes you sacrifice that time with the students. So that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Andres. And I really love that you were embracing just what other cultures are doing, other countries are doing. And, you know, because I think we can all learn from one another and how we approach, you know, working with our students. So great points, you guys. All right, so we're going to move on to our activity, our lesson for today. But before we do, I have just a big question for you guys. I want you guys to share in the chat. This is called a chat blast. That means as quickly as you can, share out your thoughts about what subject, and not just the subjects that you might teach, but what subject do you think is the hardest to bring students to the center and bring inquiry into your lessons? What subject can you think of, maybe from your own experience, or experience obviously teaching, that might be the hardest to bring that in? Oh man, 3 maths right in a row. Math, math, math. All right. I want to hear from everybody. Music. Thanks, Hope, for sharing that. Music could be challenging to bring students. History, definitely. We think of history. Well, we have these books. We know what we need to provide information and history. So how do we bring students to the center with that? Yeah. Lily, I like that. English, mechanics even. All right. So we have a lot of great thoughts around that. Some subjects are definitely more challenging than others to bring that student-centered or student voice into the lesson. So we're going to dive in to math, which seems to be what you all are seeing as a very challenging subject to have that student voice and inquiry. So before we start the actual lesson, I want to frame this a little bit. So we're going to be kind of working on a puzzle. We're going to be solving a puzzle. So we're going to be looking at a way to solve this puzzle from different perspectives. So you guys are going to be in breakout groups. You're going to be able to share your own prior knowledge and perspectives on the this puzzle that I'm going to present to you. It's kind of like when I work puzzles with my grandson, he's like the puzzle master. And so I'm staring at the puzzle, I'm looking for the right piece, and all of a sudden he comes up and finds it in 2 seconds. So I'm thinking, how does he do that? So we all have different perspectives. We all have different ways to think about a problem or a puzzle. So that's what we're going to do. And that's what this lesson is really going to be about. So to frame this even more, you guys are going to be in breakout rooms. You're going to have there's 2 parts to this. There's part 1, where you're going to have a small bit of information that will help you solve the puzzle. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to kind of work through the information in that first part, round 1. Then we're going to come back to the main room and share out any struggles, but then we're going to go back into breakout rooms. But this time you're going to be given new information about this puzzle, as well as you're going to join another group. So the second round, you're going to have new information, and you're going to have another group and their perspective to help make sense of the new information and resolve or solve this puzzle. Okay, so before I give you more information, anyone have a question with just this piece of it? Any questions you can share in the chat or just unmute? All right, it might come up if you ever have questions. So this is a screenshot of the Jamboard that you guys are going to be working on first round, first go around. you're going to be looking at these questions and trying to collectively look at the relationships between the triangles and the squares, the triangle, I should say. So I'm going to share my screen again, and a couple of things I want to share about Jamboard here is the new tools that you have over here to work with. So we just use the sticky note. You also have a text box that you can work with and a pen. So if you click on this, you can choose the type of pen, a marker, a highlighter, even a brush. So with that, you can add some drawings, if you will. The next button is your eraser. If you decide, no, that wasn't really on track, let's redo that. You also have the sticky note option. You can add shapes and a text box if you want to make any notes. The other thing I want to show you is the triangle you cannot move or manipulate. However, the squares you can move around. You can actually turn them around. The one thing I will ask you all not to do is resize the squares. Okay, so you can click on them, move them, but you cannot resize the squares. Okay, how are we doing so far? All right, so Manny's going to put the link to the Jamboard in the chat. Again, you're going to use these arrows. If you're in group number 1, make sure that you are working on the Jamboard frame that says group 1 at the top left. If you're group 2, you'll need to use those arrows to scroll over to the second, and so on. And so on until you find the frame that matches the group number that you're being sent to. All right. All right. With any last questions before we whisk you off, and you're going to have about 10 minutes to work on this round 1 and talking and discussing with your group. All right, David, are we ready?
We are. We're actually going to keep the same group since they were a little small for the first round. So once we come back for our second version, we'll combine groups. All right, I'm going to whisk you all away. Have fun.
Have fun. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to give you guys some new information. We're going to give you a new link, but with that new information, you're going to be given, you know, much of what you guys were discovering in round 1 and some questions, some guiding questions to help you through this process. So in the chat box is the new link, right? Is that the new one, you guys? For round 2, Manny? There we go. Second math one. We got it. All right. So the new link to what you're looking at here is going to be the new information whereby we are going to try to continue to solve this puzzle. We're going to combine groups so we have more voices to share thoughts and perspectives and discoveries that we had from round 1. So David's going to whisk you all back into breakout rooms, but you're going to be combined. You're going to have new people in your breakout room. Again, I don't have this round, the frames labeled group 1, group 2, but you can just look at the center here where it says 1 out of however many slides and scroll. Remember to scroll over to the frame that corresponds with the breakout room that you're being sent into this time, because it will most likely be a different group number. So pay attention to your group number and then make sure you're on the correct frame that corresponds to your group number. And we're gonna give you guys about 10 minutes here to make sense of this new information and come up with some equation that might describe your thought process. All right, David, are we ready?
Yes, we have two groups this time. So as Holly mentioned, you're either in the room 1 or room 2, which means you'll be using the first frame or the second frame of Jamboard. I'd encourage, since we do have more folks in each of the rooms now, feel free to use the chat if you have an idea, right? So just share in the chat, as well as talking out loud with the group, just to get your ideas across. Okay. Have fun.
All right, have fun, you guys. All right, so great job, everyone. I am so impressed with what you have on your slides. I'm just going to take a minute for each group. If anyone wants to share out what they had a conversation around, how they ended up solving this puzzle, if you will, and provide some type of equation. So anyone in group 1, I know you have a larger group today, so feel free to share in the chat and or just unmute yourself and share with us what your process was.
I can share out. So I feel like we were saying that we know what the equation is, but it's hard to explain what that means. But this was a good visual to kind of break down what that equation means. So we started talking about the new information was that there's a grid on the square, so we know we can assign a value to these squares. So just like the second and third question, how each side has a measurement now of 3, 4, and 5, and then you can calculate the area. And then, so we assign value to that, so 9, 16, 25, and then kind of seeing the relationship between those numbers of the 3 squares. And then we came up like, oh, okay, so that's how it translates to that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it was interesting. We kind of worked backwards because we kind of started out with that equation and then thought about, okay, how can we break this down so that we can really understand that equation? So
why it is that equation works. Yeah, exactly. I love it. It's almost like that backwards planning in a way. So awesome job. Snaps for group 1. I want to switch over to group 2 because group 2's got some great stuff here as well. Anyone in group 2 want to share out some of your process and what you kind of went through to get to this equation?
So I can share, Holly.
Thanks, Hope.
So I think similar to group 1, we had the same processes, but I think Trin brought up a great point at the end. We knew of the equation, and so I think it was easier for us to put that equation and make it make sense. But Trin brought up at the end, if we were students that have never, seen this equation before, I don't know if students would be able to put that in a mathematical equation.
Hope that's a super good point, and they probably would not. But really, we're going to dissect this and look at how that process was. Where do we find students struggling in this process so that we as educators can help guide them? So I'm going to share with you a math routine that can help students to kind of determine where they're stuck. So that's a super good point, Hope. And some of us may not have known that equation. And so the process itself and what you guys did and almost like knowing the equation and doing the figuring out, whereas others would have to do the figuring out in order to really see what that equation is all about. So I'm going to move on because I want to share this routine with you all that will help students understand and really dissect what math formulas are all about. So this routine is called My Favorite No, and it's written this way purposely. This is adapted from the teaching channel, but really what My Favorite No routine is all about is pointing out to students that in every incorrect answer, there's potential for learning opportunities. So the routine really flows from looking at what was done right in this process. What were students getting correct, or what are individual students getting correct? Where do you think you kind of fell off track? What part of that process did you get off track, for instance? And where did the error occur? So really identifying maybe in that process where what the error was that caused them to go off track. So this is a routine that can really bring and highlight how students can have voice and still go through the process and understand how you get to the actual formula. Because in math, for math teachers out there, I'm going to say, David, Ashley, that math, we need to have the correct answer. It's not an ambiguous subject. There is an endpoint. There is a point where we have to have, or we need to know how to correctly solve this problem. So getting them to that point is just as important. So at the end, having students explain and justify their thinking is just as important. Why did I all of a sudden know that it was 3 squared and not, which equaled 9? So just wanted to share this process because I think that really addresses what Hope was saying, is that students probably wouldn't have come up with that formula, but where is it in the process that they might have gone off track? So wanted to share out a little GIF or GIF, whichever way you want to say it, that might add a little bit more ahas. I'm going to let that go for a moment. And then really looking at what you all came up with, being the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so my whole intent is to really have us look at and reflect now as a putting on our teacher hat. So I really want to hear more about what the process was like for you. What strengths do you really feel like you brought to the group during this process? Maybe where were you able to learn from peers, others in your group? And how did this process really allow for student voice? So I would love to hear your thoughts either in the chat or just unmute, really how you're reflecting on this process.
I know for me, Holly, that hearing other people kind of work through it as well gave me like different perspective, because I think in my head I had something, like how do I get the answer? But I know when Lily shared out what she was thinking, it kind of cleared everything up for me too. So hearing from everyone else and not just myself, it helped it clear it up more and understand it more.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that, Andrea. So we really are able to learn from peers. Maybe it's just a different way of viewing the problem that we hadn't thought about before. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Holly, I can quickly share that I think also being in the small group gives a safe space for students to kind of lean on each other, similar to what Andres was saying, but also to express like any discomforts that they have with the content. And I know that might, because some of us might not be comfortable with math or have some, insecurities around it. So having that small group, I think allows them to feel safe and be supported in moving forward and learning a content that they may be uncomfortable with.
Absolutely. Thanks, Trent, for sharing that. And that was really the intent in starting off with very small groups, is to really provide that opportunity to feel that comfort level and to share out in small groups. Thanks, Ashley, for sharing. It's almost like working backwards. Absolutely. Instead of giving the information to students and then they work with the equation, they arrive on it on their own. Thanks, Ashley, for sharing that.
Lily, did you have something to share? I think you were gonna add something.
I was just gonna add, and I think it follows with what Trin was saying, that each person is bringing something different that they're seeing, and so they're bringing what they feel is their strength. I know for a lot of students, they're only comfortable sharing what they feel comfortable that oh, I've got this. So they're not forced to share something they're not ready to share yet. So I thought that was nice with the smaller groups, and then they're okay. Hey, I know what I'm doing. Then I can share it with a bigger group. I can see that with my students.
Yeah, Lily, like getting that confidence, that boost in a smaller environment really helps to provide the comfort level to share that and say, oh, I have something to offer here, right? And this is all about building that relationship, building the confidence in our students in order to have them grow and take more ownership of their own learning. All right, I'm looking at our time and I do want to kind of wrap it up. Please continue to share in the chat. We tried something new. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. So please share out. But I also do want to share with you on our website on TGR EDU Explore, we have what's called a self-paced module that really brings to light this bringing students back to the centered and this idea of student-centered learning. It will dive more into how to assess in that student-centered learning environment, and also provides a takeaway rubric to look at our own teaching, to look at where we might be on that student-centered spectrum, from teacher-centered to almost student-driven. So please, if you want to dive into bringing students back to the center, please feel free to go on to our module number 3, bringing students back to the center. You do get a certificate of completion at the end, so that might be a great kudo for you. So I want to pause. We have a couple more minutes. Just want to reflect a little bit about what we did throughout the workshop. Hear a little bit about your thoughts. What was your takeaway? What was your biggest takeaway from the workshop today? Feel free to chat or unmute.
Holly, for me, is what Lily said at the end. And in fact, I wrote it when she said that we start with small groups, and that gives the confidence to the students, because they can share there, and then they feel like, okay, now I know what I'm doing and can share it with the large group. Yes. And I was like thinking, because I did something like that with a student last year, and I haven't noticed that that was what I did. It was he didn't like to participate in class, to say or to answer, and I knew that he knew. And then I started like, okay, you don't want to work with anybody? Okay, don't work. But then, okay, work with this one, only 2. Come on, do it. And then he started. And at the end, he was one of the students that participated the most in my class, and was like, okay, what happened here? And now I understand that is.
Yeah, that your intuition in that moment really benefited him to feel that confidence that he really needed, that confidence boost. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Anyone else?
I think one of the key takeaways I said, because you did such a wonderful job with all the different visuals, is the power of using visuals. Because I think a lot of times as teachers, we focus a lot on words and text, which sometimes is harder for students to process if they don't always have the vocabulary for that, for the academic content, or if they're English language learners, or if they have a learning difference. But I think the visuals that were there, we were able to get to, I think, some, not just beginning levels of math, but some higher levels of math.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's it was almost like the visuals gave you a way to come up with your own language around it, and then we as educators can put the right vocabulary onto what they're thinking. All right. Thanks, you guys, for sharing your ideas, thoughts, energy, and passion just to dive into how we can really, really bring student voice and choice into a subject that we typically are challenged to do that in. So thank you guys for really feeling uncomfortable and then working through this. And really sharing out a lot of your voice. So I appreciate and thank you for that. I want to share some new dates coming up. We have 2 more workshops coming up. One is in May 12th. We're going to be diving into project-based learning 1.0, and then June, we're going to go into deeper into project-based learning in 2.0. And really want to share out also our opportunities for summer. We have 4 weeks of what's called Virtual STEM Studio. Some are inquiry mindset, and then making inquiry visible. So you can see those dates. You'll also be getting information about these dates and ways in which you can register. We're going to be staying on for a few more minutes. If people have questions that they just would rather share out in a more informal way, please feel free to stay on. We'll be on for just a little bit, about 5-10 minutes longer. But I really, again, want to thank you guys for participating today. It was a lot of fun working with you.